Extended version of the polls. Of course, we've had Vice President Dr. Bawumia, who is going on his Greater Accra Region campaign and passed through our studios today to speak with my colleague Obi. And well, to just give you a quick wrap of what has been said so far, they started by talking about the manifesto promises that the NPP made, if you like, in 2016 and whether or not they've been delivered. And Vice President Bawumia went ahead to talk about the fact that the promises have been mostly delivered and there are others that are still in the delivery processes. He talked about the free SHS, of course. That's something that government has touted over and over again when it comes to talking about delivery of the promises that it made to the people. He talks about the ambulances. He's talked about the 1D, that's one district, one factory. He's talked about 1 million, one constituency. And then, of course, about the dams, which he said he talked a bit more about subsequently. He says that the people of Ghana should be able to hold on to these deliveries and not return the NDC to power, because then it will derail everything, according to him, that the party has done. He says at the moment, the NPP is working on how to get everyone on board to be able to enjoy the goodies. And so he links that to what work has been done to bring everybody under state, not necessarily under state control, but a way where the state can trace or track people so that we can create a credit system. So the Vice President talks about the national ID system that we're embarking upon, the interoperability, the digital address system, and says that these are all so that Ghana can build a credit system for all people, so that people can, be given loans, because we know that we can track them and get the loans back, also to put them on affordable housing, etc. He went on to talk about the One Village, One Dam. He says that about 435 dams have so far been built and others are in the process. And then he talks about the flag bearer of the NDC, because Obi had asked him a question about what the former president has said about not seeing the dams in his village. He says, well, in Mr. Mahama's constituency or his hometown in Bawumia, that there has been the construction of a dam there as well. Then he went to talk about the big dam, the Pwalugu Dam, which we've been discussing, my colleague Kojo Yankson, when he went, to cover the devastation of the flooding in the northern region, talked about it and the fact that the project has stalled. So he gave some reasons why the project has stalled. He says it's as a result of the flooding that's been experienced there. He talks about the fact that the people who are working on this project are also working on other projects, the interchange, the Tamale interchange. But he says they don't necessarily have to finish that project, the interchange project, before they can move on to the dam project. But he talks about some earthworks that have to be done and the fact that it has stalled because of the flooding. He says that with the NPP's vision, the Pwalugu Dam is meant to deal with so many things. It's meant to support commercial and subsistence farming, as well as deal with the flooding issues. And we've heard about how the flooding has killed at least 11 people this year alone and devastated hundreds of farmlands, destroying communities and cutting them off. He says that Mr. Mahama does not appreciate this strategy of the NPP to be able to use the Pwalugu Dam to deal with the problem of farming and flooding as well. He says they're being responsible. So he goes on to talk about the major differences from his perspective between the NPP and the NDC, and says then there was a question about public toilets and making it a big deal. And he says, well, it is a big deal for the people in the villages, because in the village, if you don't have a place to ease yourself, you risk snake bite if you have to do that in the bush. So he talks about that and talks about the fact that 4,700 communities under the NPP were declared open defecation free, and he matches that to what he says is the NDC's record, which he says was 440. So he said 440 communities under the NDC were declared open defecation free, but if you come to the NPP administration, 4,700 of that has gone on. They went on to talk about the Tema motorway. That has been a big deal. In fact, ownership of projects, that is, who started the project, who finished the project, who initiated funding, by the way. that also came up in that conversation, and the vice president talks about how they completed negotiations and started the project. I'm talking about the Tamale project, the Tema motorway project. He also talked about the Tamale interchange, what's happening, the project in Takrade as well. And then he came to talk about the funding, which is, of course, the Sino Hydro project. He says the NDC has been naysayers in these interactions, or in these interactions that's meant to give Ghana some grant to be able to, or loans to be able to finish these projects. But he says it was because this is novel and it hasn't been done before. But he believes that they're doing very well with it. There was an issue about the national debt stock that they discussed, and Obi pointed out to him that $46.3 billion, that if you translate to Ghana cedis, is about 263.1 billion cedis, which is also translated to 68% of Ghana's GDP is what we owe in debts as a country. And he asked whether that is commensurate with the project that the NPP claims to have done for the country. Well, Vice President Bawumia, as an economist, as you may well expect, went down to break it down a lot, and I won't bore you with all of those figures. But bottom line, the point he makes is that the country's economy has been better managed by the NPP as compared to the NDC. He says even though they borrowed a lot more, the rate of increase in our debt stock has significantly been reduced. And he compares the NPP's administration to the NDC's administration, saying that during the NDC administration, interest rates were up, inflation was up, but he says that is not the case. And even though, you know, the cedi is up, he says the Ghana cedi is at the moment one of the best performing currency against the major trading currency, that's the US dollar. So like I said, I won't bore you with all of the details, but he goes on and on to talk about it and says, what about COVID-19 and, you know, putting monies in and bailing people out from, you know, within the financial sector? He says it's good to protect lives today, and then we'll manage the economy later. As I wrap up, he talked about the voter secessionism that has come up. He talked about the manifesto promises. He talked about PDS, talked about the financial sector as well. We'll bring you more of these stories. There will be more on our website, myjoyonline.com. But this video will also be on demand, myjoyonline.com, also on YouTube. So that is it for me for now. My name is Gifty Andopia. It's been a pleasure coming your way, and great guest you have been as always. Let's do this again tomorrow.